call to order work session and regular meeting October 8th, 2019. Right now, we're going to call the work session to order. Items for review and discussion. A is rental inspection program. Who do you want up?
Well, Mr. Mayor, I will take the lead on this, and also to speak this evening is Dave Clemens, our Planning and Building Director, as well as Brian Hunt, our Certified Building Official. And we've also got representatives here from the Code Enforcement Committee. It's a citizen-led committee on behalf of the city that's appointed by the Mayor and Council that actually brought this program to the Council's attention and are bringing it forward. So I know Tom McPherson's here, and I'm looking for other members that might be on that committee, and I'm not seeing anyone else at this time, although I'm expecting a few more. So as we get started, you'll notice Dave has prepared a council information form, and I'm not going to read the council information form to you. It's on page 6 of your agenda, and talks about the history of this and how it came forward. And I will just hit briefly that the reason why this is in front of you this evening is in the last 3 years, the council's had a retreat and a strategic planning session to determine what the top goals were for the city. And based from that strategic planning meeting came 4 different areas, and that was the importance of public safety, the importance of our infrastructure. Most at the top of that list was roads, importance of our schools, and then the last part was, and it was the #1 item that came up, was code enforcement and cleaning up the city of Belton. Based upon those goals that came from the council, and that being the #1 criteria, it then went to the Code Enforcement Committee, and then the Code Enforcement Committee looked at what the different options were to try to further the council's code goals. And so to support the Code of Ordinances, they came up with what they thought would be a good solution, which is a rental inspection program. And so the rental inspection program that's in the, that we've been discussing, we went out and we did research. We ended up looking at different cities in the area, and other cities, since we've been looking, have also adopted a rental inspection program. Just the ones off the top of my head that I can think of are Kansas City, Independence, Gladstone, Grandview, and St. Joe. So in looking at all of those, they went to the different sites, went to the different cities, spoke with many different individuals, and from that, bringing forward is the City of Independence's program. Based upon the council information form that's here, as well as the sample code that was in tonight's packet and on for its first reading, I had quite a few questions that came up, and I'd like to go over those questions and what those responses are, just for clarification. And before I do that, I want to do a shout out to both Councilman Trutzel as well as Councilman Van Winkle through their questions, and being able to provide those to us in the last couple of days has provided us an opportunity to really drill down, and I think we'll end up with a better product for it. And so I'd like to go over those now, if that's okay with the council.
Sure.
Okay. One of the questions that came up was, is it for a business license, is that a business license for each property owned? And so you would have to have multiple business licenses. And the answer to that is no. It's one business license per landlord. You may have multiple real estate, multiple ownerships, multiple areas that you manage, but it's one business license. So that based upon that criteria and looking at the language that was written, we did go in and we're tweaking that.
Question.
You want questions as she's asking these questions, or do you want to wait until the end?
It's a work session, I think, if it's okay.
I guess my
with the
question to
mayor.
you, because I thought our original business license mandated if they had more than 3 rental properties under one LLC, that they had to have a business license. So before, right? I thought when we talked about this a couple times ago that if they had, people were setting up multiple LLCs because if to circumvent getting a business license, they would put two houses under one LLC and then have another LLC for the other two houses or whatever.
Right, that it would
So
be
y-
correct.
So you're saying if a landowner has 6 LLCs and 12 houses, they still only need one business license?
No,
for-
they'll need 6 business licenses for those LLCs. So what you're probably going to see those business owners do is probably go back and re-put everybody
I
under
just
one
wanted, because
LLC.
what I got from what you just said is, what I heard was if they have multiple companies and all that, they only need one business license, what I
No,
heard.
no, if they have, they could have multiple properties under one LLC, they would only need one. But if they have multiple LLCs, if they have multiple business names, they would need a business license
But
for
our
each one.
current rules today say if you have more than 3 rentals, you gotta have a business license?
I
Is that what
think
I remember hearing it before?
I believe that it's any,
I can answer that. That was our previous code, and in May it was amended to read, to actually just be deleted. So prior it was 3 rental units or less, and you did not have to have a business license, and that language was amended in May to be taken out.
We did change that in May, right? But I guess I'm going back to before we amended everything. The original
Prior, yes.
prior was
correct.
you have to have 3. Okay. I just want to make sure we're all,
on the
I'm
same
hearing what
page.
you're saying
Yeah,
there.
thank you. Yeah, that's great. So, and then the next question that came about was, where does the power to issue, renew, deny, revoke, or suspend a license and declare a dwelling in violation? And that really comes more under Chapter 6, which is what we amended previously under business licenses. So, just as today, under code enforcement, when somebody is in violation of having a code enforcement issue, if they don't follow the appropriate process to get that corrected, it can result in the city revoking a business license, but that is a last degree. That's a last issue there. So that portion of denying or revoking or suspending a business license, that is covered under that section, is not looked at here. But what it did make us realize was that we needed to have an appeals process so that if somebody has an inspection done and they don't agree with it, with how the result of the inspection, they can write an appeal, and that appeal goes through our certified building official, who will then clarify that, and it gives a larger depth of recourse and accountability to make sure that the inspectors are doing their jobs. Another question was regarding beginning in April of 2020 and every other year after that. I know that there was, some people believed it was a discussion at the last meeting to only do it when it's vacant and do it at a changeover. And while that was discussed at the last meeting, that type of inspection program would be difficult to administer because ultimately it would become an honor system approach to inspections due to many landlords keeping utilities under their names, and the onus would be on the landlord to report to the city whenever they had that changeover. Many times the city is unaware that individuals leave, and tracking it through utility changeover or review is not an efficient method of enforcement, and it would make it a program that does little in the pursuit of enforcement and trying to ensure the health and safety of a facility. So that was the reason that that staff looked at the inspection program and requiring it every other year. What are the inspection type items? They're basically health and safety, and it covers just generally 5 different areas. I was asked what that list is. The rental unit inspection includes no exposed electrical wire, all smoke detectors are in proper working order, all handrails are secured and functional, property address street numbers should be visible, all units should have a working sanitary sewer system, at least 1 carbon monoxide detector be installed in all multifamily units and new or remodeled homes. A safe, continuous, and unobstructed means of egress shall be provided from the interior of a structure to a public way. Ground fault circuit interceptors are required to be placed within 6 feet of any water source, including but not limited to bathrooms, garages, crawl space, unfinished basements, and kitchens. And then all furnaces, water heaters, and corresponding accessories shall be properly installed and maintained in a safe working condition and should be capable of performing the intended function. And so this is basically around, you know, your electrical, your water, your HVAC, and then your life-saving areas of smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors, and then just, you know, property address, street numbers should be visible to make sure that emergency vehicles are able to make it to their correct location in a timely manner.
Stephanie, I'm sorry.
There was a mention in the packet regarding foundation, and I don't remember us discussing that, so I just want to make sure that that was not part of the list, or if it is, because I didn't see that.
Didn't see it here. I don't think that it is, but I'm going to turn to our building official to confirm.
Structural was not on this list. We have not completed the permanent inspection list. This was a bullet list for inspections. There will be a structural inspection, but typically most rental inspectors are not structural. They will do on a visual walk around. If they notice a structural deficiency, then that would require further inspection and maybe a different inspector, but there will be a structural component to the inspection list.
That answer it? Councilman?
But now you just said we're gonna have 2 different inspectors.
No, sir. The rental inspector will have a structural line item on the inspection list. The person that does this rental inspection, if it is deemed for further investigation, then they would be required for.
Well, I guess what I heard you say was most rental inspection people are not structural people, so there'll be a separate person to do the structural inspection, is what I heard.
Necessary.
I guess my problem gets into is we're sitting here talking about something that's not even in the code and we're gonna vote on it. And you want me to vote on something that's not even in what we're voting on. I mean, are we talking about structural? Because, I mean, that's something other than what I'm reading in here, such as foundation. I mean, are we looking at water in the basement? What are we looking at on foundation? I mean, I think it'd be more obvious to understand what we're voting on if we actually knew what we were voting on.
Well, the original intent of the rental inspection program is to ensure the essential health and safety issues. It would be important for a structural or a inspector when they're coming to the rental facility, to the building, if it's something that they notice, and there's a question that I have for Brian, can that be an optional item that is denoted and listed so as to bring attention to the owner or the landlord for future safety reference, but it's not part of the inspection process that could be declined or be?
Yes, the intent would be in the rental inspection, the inspection that's doing during this inspection program, if there was an obvious structural defect, then it would be called out for the attention of more inspection required. As far as part of this inspection, we're not going to do structural inspections. But obviously, if we're walking around a building and there's a foundation crack that's deemed could be structural,
It would be denoted, but it's not.
Denoted, but it's not part of this inspection as it is.
And to take that one step further, would it then not be a part of whether, so say everything else that I listed as part of the rental inspection, those all pass, but he or she would denote that there's a crack in the foundation. It would then pass.
Correct.
It's more of a professional courtesy. It's like when you have a new home inspected, it's not part of what has to be deemed to be corrected in order to get a certificate of occupancy if somebody's has their home inspected. But it's noted so that whoever is looking at the facility is aware and it's been fully disclosed if it's something that they've noted.
Question, Councilman Trutzel.
The foundation thing is going to be kind of a wiki. you can have a foundation that's bowed, but it's not an immediate going to fall down tomorrow kind of situation. It's one that needs to be looked at. If you're talking about notifying the owner that you see that, that's one thing. If you're going to deny occupancy, that's a different deal, because you truly have to have a structure. You have to have the engineer come out, literally, and that's going to be expensive for him to come out, and he's going to look at it, and he's going to measure it. He's going to say this wall is in 2 inches, or where the case might be. You need to put steel I-beams in there to reinforce that wall so it doesn't move. We're getting into an area that I think probably, unless the building's going to fall down, then that's a different situation. But most of it is going to be let you know that you probably want to look at that, and maybe you want to take some precautionary things. But I don't think we want to get into saying that this is a structurally inferior building for a householder, for a
Right,
rental.
and I don't believe that that would be the comment. I think it would be more of an observation that this was seen as a information piece only, not as in regards to whether or not it fails or passes.
Thank you.
Did you have one, Councilman
Yes, I
Savage?
do. My comment is that one thing leads to another, and I've said that many times. Right now, okay, let's get this passed, and we're gonna take a bowed wall. Well, tomorrow, it's gonna be fix that wall, and I just got a problem. As I've made the comment before, once you get your head in the sack, they'll eventually get their whole body in, and you've heard me say that, Mayor, and so, yeah, we just keep growing this thing and growing this thing. I have always supported the fact that we have more support and codes enforcement. I don't have a problem with that, but I think, I've said it before, I think we're stepping way too far out, even on a rental inspection, and quite frankly, that's what we need codes enforcement for. We need to let it be known that we've got the people here. Let us know if there's a problem, and you've heard this from this chair before. However, has there been, going back to where we're at, has there been any consideration that if you got a home that passes, it's no problem, why 2 years? Why not 5 years? Stretch this thing out to where it's not a bother, at least to, one, the homeowner, and two, the person that's been there for 15, 18, 20 years. Why not stretch this thing out and make it a little bit reasonable? You've already got your finances figured out. You got $75, I think, or $70 for a annual license. There, you've generated the cash already to have the codes enforcement. So let's back off of some of this. And I've said that before, but at least you heard me say it again.
Councilman Lathrop?
I want to go back to the losing your license, where if a unit is not up to where it's supposed to be,
Yeah, let's say they don't
And they don't
get their
fix it.
carbon monoxide detector installed, right? Just for simple.
and they can
things.
lose their license for that.
Yeah, this is a pass or fail.
Okay, I know, but if they lose their license and they've got 6 or 8 houses, that means all of them have to move?
Pardon me?
I think a better way to define it would be they would just fail the inspection, and there would be a 30-day window where they could make arrangements to get that carbon monoxide detector installed, and then there would be a reinspection, the box would be checked, and they'd be fine.
But
Just by virtue of not having an item passed doesn't mean the business license
Yeah.
is going to be revoked.
Well, I thought that's what you said
Yeah.
earlier. If it wasn't fixed in a reasonable time, their business license would be revoked.
Right, no, that it has to, there are many times when individuals in the city of Belton and other cities as well don't promptly get their business license in a timely manner, and we've got timeframes built into that in order to try to accommodate them so that they can complete the paperwork. And it takes an extreme amount of negligence to constitute a business license revocation.
Well, I'm talking about if they have one unit they're not taken care of. Then if you revoke the license, that license covers all of them. That means all of them are revoked.
Well, it means that they lose their business license there, and then we take other legal action with them to try to get them to correct it.
But what is the
What's the outcome to the tenant that's in the
outcome
home?
of the tenants to the other 4 houses.
Right. Legal, I would love your input on that.
Under the current rental inspection program and your guys' current business license program, I don't believe that revocation of the business license under this would require the families to move out. It would just mean that the landlord, property owner, LLC, whatever you may have, is operating illegally in the city. It wouldn't, I don't believe, would do any damage to the tenant of the structure or of the home, the residential dwelling unit as it's defined in the program. It would instead be an action against the landlord. So that, just because you don't have the business license wouldn't mean that the city would then walk in and say, hey, everybody's got to be gone.
Yeah.
It
but
would
he
instead
would
be.
still be renting the other 4. Or
Yeah,
whatever.
you would still be running the other 4. The city would instead be going through enforcement actions to ensure that there is compliance with the city code, not with making it so that nobody can live in your houses.
Questions? Councilman Clark?
Just on the item they brought up, I mean, currently our city codes does not require a carbon monoxide detector, so why would we put it in here if we're not gonna amend our codes? Because I think last time Brian said that was in 2018 codes and we're at 2010 codes or whatever like that, so if we're gonna make our codes tougher on rental properties than we do residential properties that are now being new, I mean, I don't understand all that either.
Well, the council can definitely look at that and make that whether or not you would like to have that included. When the staff looked at it, we looked at it from a health and safety issue for the residents of the home, and looking at like a smoke detector being standard, like a carbon monoxide detector would be, to ensure the safety of those residents.
I mean, personally, I think our codes ought to be, if we're gonna require them to do it, I think that we ought to amend our codes.
And we're in the process of doing that right now.
We will be bringing the 2018 code to the city council in the future. We've done a lot of work on that, and we're preparing to bring that forward for additional work. So it would align at that point in time.
Councilman Savage?
So, I want to speak on that first with, the smoke detector. I think it's a great idea. The problem that I've seen in the past throughout is it can be working the day of inspection and the battery be pulled, and you still don't have it. That's a battle all the time. So I don't really see where you come to health and safety that is. I don't see how you enforce it. Even as a landowner, how do you enforce it? You go in every day, and so again, the health and safety kind of gets washed away, been my experience, I'll put it that way. Also, the cost of the inspection, I haven't seen anybody speak on that, at least in a while. And then what about the reinspection, the cost, if one fails to come back out? Has there been any study or is there anything concrete confirmed on that?
I can't provide anything concrete. The arrangement between the contractors would be between the landlord and the contractor to hire for that service. Just as you hire for a plumber or a inspector if you're having something done, or if you're having a carpenter build your deck and you've got to have the building official come or inspector come and look. That whole arrangement of the work is done between the owner and the individual. We do know that the estimated cost in Independence is.
We did study the Independence program because that's an important consideration for the council. The inspection fee in Independence is $50 per unit, and if there is a reinspection, that's an additional $30. So those are the numbers that we've just been generally talking about as a benchmark.
Thank you, Dave.
I remember the $50. I never heard the 30 yet. However, if the landowner has got to come up with who, are you still looking at providing names of people that's going to do it for $50? Or
Well,
I didn't hear you say that just now. That's what I
No.
heard before, though.
No, and part of that, and that was one of the questions that I got today, was what are the qualifications and the criteria for the companies that we're looking at? And that's part of the reason why we're looking at the program starting in April of next year, is there's still some work that needs to be done as we go forward, and that's the next step, is to get the qualifications and get vendors approved that can come in and do this type of work, and what those qualifications would hold.
Direct question again. Do a landowner or a homeowner call the city for an inspection for a inspector approved, or does that person go search whatever sources there are?
Right, there would be a list of approved vendors through the city that we would list in order for individuals to use.
So ultimately, we know that Independence does what they do, but we don't really have much of an idea of what the cost might be, because no one's talked to us about that.
Well, we have talked with 2 of the companies that presently do the service in Independence,
Yes,
and they're very interested in working in Belton once our program gets off the ground. And those are companies that presently charge $50 for inspection in Independence and $30 for a reinspection.
I hear that. Will they drive to Belton for $50?
Yes, the
They
conversation.
said they will.
Yes, yeah.
Thanks, Dave.
The conversations to date have been around those numbers.
Around those numbers?
Those numbers, yeah.
Thanks, Dave.
You're welcome.
Going on.
One of the things talked about was a question came up when it gave the example of a 6-unit building and having a 25% for people that have 6 or more units. What are we looking at if you do the calculation? 25% of 6 units is 1.5. So what do we look at? So we've added language that would then, anytime you've got a statistic that comes up that is a partial unit, you would round up to the next number. So in this situation, it would go up to 2. So they would be required to do 2 every 2 years. So it means that, let's say you have an apartment building that's got like 20 units. You would do 5 of 25%, so you do 5 of those units in year 1, and then you'd have 2 years later, you'd have to do another 5 units, which would be another 25%, and then, so ultimately it could take up to 7 years to get all of them inspected. And we built that in just in an attempt to try to be reasonable, put a reasonable factor in there, and knowing that, you know, individuals that have large apartment complexes, we're trying to, you know, from 6 and up, but the council can look at that and make that a different number if you want. It was just, we were trying to ebb into it.
Councilman Van Winkle.
Yeah, tied to that, and that was one of the questions I had for you earlier. Chet and I discussed it a little bit further, and we were talking about, let's say there's a fairly large building with quite a few units within the building. What if you get in there and find the two you check are pretty significantly degraded and have problems? Are you going to stop there? Or is that enough to go, maybe we need to look further on this building? If you've got 2 out of, say, 10 that are just really horrible, because as some of the information you passed on, we know if it's cockroaches or infestations or whatever, those things can be spreading all the way through the building. So I would just say you might want to consider other options, or in addition to what you're dealing with there on your percentages, if you really run into something that's bad, maybe there needs to be an avenue to expand that out. That's all.
Okay.
Councilman Clark.
I guess my first question is, how many units in Belton have 6 or more units per building besides Carnegie, whatever the Belton Plaza behind Napa, Georgetown Apartments, Pat's, or Matt's, or Belton High, I don't know what it's called on North Scott, because they're all attached. I don't know if that's considered one building, or how you...
Town, yeah. Carnegie wouldn't be included. That's a care facility, and that's regulated by the state, so they have their own set of inspections that they have to take a look at. These are more of your free market apartment buildings like Georgetown or
Belton Plaza.
Yeah, exactly.
That there are only 2 that actually have more than 6 units in a building?
Oh, I don't have that count for you. I can get that for you.
I guess I'm just looking at
If I think that we need
our
that.
community. We don't have a lot of high-rise or apartment complexes that have more than 6 apartments in one building. That's what it reads, 6 apartments in one building.
Okay.
So I guess my question to you is, so South Fork, let's say they have 100 trailers in there that they rent out. Based on our code, they have to have 100 inspections done because it's not in one building.
Okay, I can,
Is
we
that-
can look at that.
I mean, I guess that's my question. Do they have to, because it says every unit has to be inspected unless they have more than 6 buildings in a unit.
Well, I think if you were to, as we're talking this out, if you take a look and you've got, in a large complex, you could have up to 6, 9, 10 buildings in it that have 30 or 40 units per building. And if you just keep it at only, you take all their rooms in the entire units, I think you have to make it per building so that you're actually able to get them accomplished.
I guess what I'm asking is,
That's come out the same.
South Fork is not, if you have trailers that are being rented, they're not a building, they're individual residents, different addresses. So if you look at, I think it's called Belton Town Plaza behind Napa, it's 2 stories and there's 8, 12 units there, so they would actually have to be, they would fall underneath this code. They'd only have to have 25% of them inspected. Let's say they have 12 per building. So each building, they would have to have 25, which would be what, 4 or 3? 3
For each building.
for each building, right. And the one behind the old Price Chopper, I don't even know what those are called out there. They have like 10 buildings out there at minimum. So I'm just trying to
So
figure out
they-
how the trailer parks fall in this equation compared to what I'm reading. It says 6, have more than 6 buildings. So I didn't know if someone had 6 units, was it one building that had more than 6 addresses? I'm just reading the ordinance.
Well, and I think that's a great observation, and that's something that we can help clarify the language on.
Where are we at?
You ready for me to go on?
Ye-
Okay. A lot of these questions we've already gone over. How are deadlines set, and what are those guidelines for if something fails an inspection? Contingent upon the type of issue, if it's a life safety issue, it would need to be brought into compliance within 24 hours. All other areas would have 30 days. So for example, you've got electrical outlet that has exposed wire, it's completely open, you got 2 wires that are exposed, that's a life safety item, you've got to get it addressed within 24 hours. A smoke detector without a battery, it needs to be corrected within 24 hours, that's life safety. So that's the general guideline of what we would be looking at for the deadlines. What establishes the deadline and who verifies the correction? They would have the reinspection process. And then, as I stated earlier, we've placed an appeals process into this so that if somebody believes that they're getting the raw end from an inspector, they can appeal it to the building official, our certified building official, who would then go out and review it to make sure that it's in compliance. Another area came upon the right of entry and admin search warrant. Where does the court and prosecutor stand on giving these search warrants? And the response to that is the City Council adopted a code for administrative search warrants. It's in section 14-5 of our city code. That was adopted in August of 2018. Since that time, a procedure has been put into place and is performed by the Code Enforcement Department within Planning and Building. And the prosecuting attorney and municipal judge have been very receptive to those requests of being able to assist us in going through that administrative search warrant in order to be able to further abatement and enforcement of our codes. And we would see this following that same area. Who would prepare those search warrants? It would be, again, our Code Enforcement Department. And another section that was asked was, would we be putting the city in a position to be sued? And the answer to that is possibly. No more than any other new code. When people are unhappy, we live in a litigious society and people are sue happy. Would they sue the city? I don't know. Would they not? I don't know, because I don't have the in-depth view of what other people thought process are. How does our ordinance protect the city from suit, as some cities have possibly faced? You know, I know that there's been some comments made by individuals talking about lawsuits that are out there, but in the local, those 5 areas that I know that have rental inspection programs, Kansas City, Independence, Gladstone, Grandview, and St. Joe, none of them have any acting lawsuits against them. I think it's more about the angst of the unknown program and new process to be followed, and people just don't realize what that's going to be. Once we're able to provide them with additional information of education, I think they'll be in a better state of mind. And what is the plan to implement this ordinance if it's passed? Deliverables would be prepared by the April 2020 commencement of the program. It would include educational materials like landlord-tenant guides, complaint forms, rental-ready brochures, and just more common education of what the city's code is and how they need to comply. Who's responsible for this program? It would be the Planning and Building Department. It's our code enforcement. And would we need to add staff to accomplish this ordinance? And the answer to that is no, not at this time. As you'll recall, the city's already, in this year's budget, added a code enforcement officer. And with that, we believe that we would have adequate staff to be able to pursue this program. And that completes basically the overall questions that I got earlier. So,
Councilman?
You stated earlier that, and I'll go on record, and I said it's the first time we talked about it back in August, that I hate the 2-year program. I've wanted, maybe as the units change hands to, before they can issue a water bill, for us to do this, and you said that's going to be hard for us to control. I guess my question to you and to anybody, how are we going to figure out what units are rented? Because, you know, if 504 Scott Street is rented to someone today and they never change, and the business owner never lists that person as a rental property, I mean, how do we know? How are we going to control that?
right. Well, what we're trying to do with this program is commence a rental inspection program to begin starting to look at properties in order to make them healthy and safe. We would take it upon the landlords that have got their business license registration to get a list of their properties, and that's where we commence and that's where we begin looking.
I guess my question is, how many landlords have came forward since we passed that ordinance in May, and I don't know when it actually went into effect, and got their business licenses?
Do you have that information with you, Andrea?
Don't have it with me, but I believe the number to date yesterday was 208
208 different entities?
entities, yes.
We say we can't control when the water gets turned on, but somehow we can control that someone's going to be honest and list all the rental units. I mean, I get we can control the apartment complexes because they're all rented. I mean, they're not owned. But how do you control an individual house if the landlord doesn't tell you about it?
And that's very true. And at some point, you know, we have tax records. We've got those type of resources at our fingertips through GIS, through Integrity, through the county, that we can then research and look up what those are and what they're listed to confirm that those fall under the ownership to ensure that those get inspected.
I personally believe in the rental inspection program. Me personally, I've said that. I just don't like how often we want to do it. And to me, if someone has a good landlord, and I've had a couple renters come to me and says, my landlord I've been with for 7 years, they take care of me, they take care of the property, I don't want you in my house. I mean, what do I say to that person? Because we don't belong in their house as long as they're happy. And that's why, personally, I'd rather see us trying to figure out a different method as far as when we inspect, and that's why I brought up the water issue, because every time you change a residence, they have to come in and get their water turned on, put down a deposit, and then we move forward. I couldn't imagine.
Actually, Councilman Clark, they don't. Many of these rental properties are under the landlord's name, and then they pay for it themselves, and they just pass that through in their rent.
Okay.
And so and that's the problem with that, is that you don't always have that, that portion of it. And so that's why we looked at a different area. But, you know, it's up to the council.
Councilwoman Davidson.
Yeah, that's my biggest hesitation on this. I do support a rental inspection program, but my biggest hang up personally is the inability to capture all of the rental properties and to be able to enforce this equally among, you know, the good and the bad, if you will. So without that information, it feels like we're being hard on people who are already in compliance with our code.
You know, I had somebody share with me an analogy and stated that, you know, there are multiple laws that are out there, and they're out there for a reason. And I know I've heard some people say, you know, this is an overreach. Why is the city looking at this? And it's the same reason you've got traffic laws, because many people are safe drivers, and some aren't. But everybody has to comply to the law, and that is a reaction and a necessary requirement in order to keep order throughout. And so, as you look at wanting to possibly have a rental inspection program, you know, I know that is the difficult part. Is there are good landlords, and there are landlords that aren't so good. And so, but everybody would need to adhere.
Councilman Lathrop?
I have one more question. Is this gonna affect our economic development on multifamily housing?
I don't have a feel for that.
I didn't
Yeah.
either, but I'm putting it out there.
Yeah. What I can do is we can contact the other cities that have put it in place and seen what their reaction has been.
More questions? Councilwoman Peak?
If the landlords didn't list their property, would that violate their license? Maybe that's a legal question.
Yeah, that would just be like any business operating without a business license. So if it turned out that a landlord did not comply, if the council chooses to adopt the rental inspection program, didn't comply with the requirement to get a license, then it would be the same thing if McDonald's decided not to get a business license. It would be an enforcement action against that landlord.
Well, they could have a license. They might not just list, if they own 30 properties, they might only list 20.
Yeah, and then that would be the same situation.
Oh, I forgot.
Where if the city were able to find evidence via, tax records, multiple avenues to look at that, then it would be, again, an enforcement action against the landlord for failure to comply with the rental inspection program, and Andrea has it.
It also has a statement at the bottom of the license application that when you sign off, you're saying that it's true to the best of your knowledge. My statement's listed in the application.
I guess my question is
It'd be
how
a straight
many
up lie.
how many businesses do business in Belton without a license today? Anybody that mows the grass doesn't have a business license, I can almost guarantee it.
We do have some
Some.
who have landscaping or grass mowing businesses.
Door-to-door salespeople that come in and I'm guarantee they don't have a business license. So I go back to business license are honesty things, and people come and do them because that's the honest way to do business.
We do have procedures in place for when those instances happen, and certainly they happen. We do have procedures in place to take care of it.
Yeah, you know, we were contacted a couple of weeks ago by somebody that popped up at the former Sheridan's location selling I don't know what they were selling. I just know that flags and T-shirts and things like that. It was brought to our attention. Over the weekend, I contacted Andrew to determine if we had a peddler's permit for that business. No, they didn't. We contacted the police department. Police department went and they had already shut down for that day, but when they went back on Sunday, they were there, shut them down. They've since moved to Raymore, but but the police department is proactive on that, and they do watch it, because there are those areas that pop up that not only do they need a permit, but they need the permission of whoever's land they're sitting on, and they just come in and pop up. And the police department does stop and ask questions and inquire, and if they don't have the necessary or door-to-door people that are selling vacuums or security systems, or I'm trying to think of the ones that have come through this last year that we've shut down and sent along. And if they've got one person in their team that gives us inappropriate information on their application, they don't get their permit and they're not able to do business.
So who doesn't need a peddler's or a permit, like farmers? They don't need it to open up a stand on the side of the road, is what I remember, right?
That's correct. There's a state statute that covers that.
What about the bonsai guy?
He would need one.
He needs one? Okay.
And he was
Officer
moved,
Baker,
he was moved
you
along
want
as
to
well.
reply to that one?
Was.
There's a state statute regarding the age of the peddler for things like the sales on the side of the road. If they're selling products that they themselves have grown, if they're age 65 or older, there's no licensing required in the state statute.
That answer it? You're safe. You ready? I've got one for you. We've got any of the members of the Code Enforcement Committee? Tom, I know you're there. Anybody else? Tom, you want to come up, anything you've got or want to say, or?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of things that I would like to just make the council, and more than that, make our city constituents aware of. Is kind of the background of this committee. This is an advisory committee. We do not make any law, we do not make any ordinance or anything like that. All we do is provide advice, discuss different situations, and then anything that we come up with, we bring back to the city council if it needs to go any further. That being said, we are not code enforcement. We are not code enforcement officers, which has been stated this week. We are just a committee that is here to give advice when questions come up about codes or issues in that way. This particular issue first came up, I've been on this committee since it was first established back in May of 2012. It was first discussed in November of 2012. Something was brought to the council in January of 2013. There was some discussion at that time. It came back to the committee. We tabled it. We've not done, we had not taken any additional action. It has been brought up from time to time, but a lot of what we were doing at that time was we did want to find out what is happening, because there were a lot of communities in the area. It was in the news. There were a lot of discussion about other communities that were doing this. So we wanted to wait and find out what are they doing? What's going to work? We didn't want to be the one to be out in front creating something and then facing legal issues or anything like that we would have to backtrack on. So it kind of took a back seat. It came up in 2013. I do apologize. I don't have all of my minutes because I changed phones a week ago, and I had a lot of my minutes on my phone, and I lost some of them. But I do, from the hard copies that I have, I do show it coming back after the council did talk about it in January of 2013. We've talked about it all through 2017, 2018, at different times. Whenever we would meet, that was often one of our agenda items. Sometimes we spent more time on it, and other times we spent more time with the chickens. those of you that were around a few years ago will remember the chickens. This is the committee that got sent the chickens. So that's just kind of the background of where we have come from with this. We did, after the last meeting in August, when it was presented to you at that time, and we did hear, several of us were here so that we could hear from the Landlord Association, their representatives, took notes of that. We did postpone our meetings. Typically are every other month. The first Wednesday of the month is when we have typically met. That meeting actually was postponed a couple of weeks so that we could take in the information that was brought to the council at that time. So that's just kind of a little bit of the background on where this came from. It was presented before most of our staff was even staff in Belton. So it's going back that far that we have been, as a committee, have been discussing that. So it's not something that our current staff brought forward. It's something we already had on the table for discussion with our current staff. We did take item by item the things that were brought forward by the association representative at that August meeting. We did try to look at each of those. Some of the things that were mentioned, and I don't believe we've really talked about that tonight, or I've heard it talked about tonight, but one of the questions was a lot of places that have HUD housing already have to do a HUD inspection every year. Could that work? And, the feeling that we had was, yes, as long as it covers what we want covered, because the word we got was there's a lot of different kind of HUD inspections. And so as long as it covers the items that we're wanting and requesting, that would be the type of thing. Another suggestion that was made was maybe something could be worked out where if a landlord had multiple units that they had to have inspected, they might be able to work something with the inspector that could maybe give them a discount. If they come out here and they spend one day and just hit a whole bunch of inspections that one day, maybe they could get a discount for doing that. But that is something that would have to be worked because the city is not really the one, it's not our inspector. It is actually a contract between the landlord and a private inspector that we're just making recommendations and approving a list of the ones to contact. So that would be something that really would be up for discussion, and the feeling was that might be something that some of these inspectors would be willing to do as well. Those, I believe, are some of the main things that I recall. A lot of discussion went into it, and it's not anything that we took lightly. Before we brought it here, we have hashed out many things in that committee for several years. So.
Anybody got a question to Tom? Councilman Savage.
Tom, turn this on so you can hear me. Was you involved in any background on the 2-year? Did you have anything to do with the 2-year choice, or was that a suggestion from Independence where it came from, or can you share anything there?
To my knowledge, that was just, most of it came from the suggestion of what they were doing. Mm-hmm. I don't believe we really talked about that being a hard and fast number. That what we were concerned with, there's a lot of tenants that stay in a place for a long time. There's a lot of tenants that turn over fairly rapidly. And so trying to find something in between was more what we were looking at. And I think just because of the model that we were looking at, they went with 2 years. That's what we picked up on.
wasn't really any discussion much on that. It's just, it came your way.
To my knowledge, I don't believe we really spent a lot of time looking at that particular time frame when it was being drawn up.
Thank you, Tom. And I could understand how that would be. So it could maybe be discussed further.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Other comments for Tom, questions? Thanks, Tom. Was there anybody else from the committee out there tonight? Okay, Dave, you have any other comments or questions?
No, sir, nothing additional. Be happy to answer any questions council might have.
Okay, I was going to say a few things. For the proactive rental program, the reasons that we had originally was public health, exposure to such things as mold, allergens, pests, lead, asbestos, and I forget about asbestos being in the tiles of floors and all that. Safety, lead paint, structural damage, welfare. Who is it that suffers the most in our rental programs where they're not doing a good job? It's going to be children. It's going to be the elderly. We probably have some language barriers with people. That's a predominant problem. We have real little means of protecting these people that we don't know anything about. We don't know that they're living with problems. One of the new ones that they're identifying now is where there's meth places, meth being in, smoked, whatever, that is absorbed into the walls. There's a lot of research going on to that. Can cause problems. Hoarding is a problem. There are people that are hoarders. I think my wife is one of them. And I'm being facetious, kind of. All right, but one of the big problems is retaliation. Retaliation by landlords for whistleblowing. They get evicted. Of course, the state does give us some guidelines, minimum. Rents are raised to cover improvements. Water bills with 1 meter is a problem. I still can't believe, I know a major housing project that does 1 meter and they divide the water amongst all those people. Now, how fair is that to those people that use very little water that's paying for everybody else? These are the kinds of things that we're concerned with. Also, the positives of the program would be improving quality of life and housing. There's nothing worse in the world to be next to somebody that does not take care of their properties, and it's dangerous. Property values are maintained, go up. The low-hanging fruit, Chief, I saw you get in, and I'm sorry. I'm going to have to ask you, could you explain to me a segue? We used to talk about this all the time, the broken window syndrome type thing. Could you explain that briefly?
A criminologist, he's passed away now, but there was a criminologist named James Q. Wilson, and Mr. Wilson came up with a theory of broken windows, and that theory basically is that property that is maintained, they did a study where properties that were maintained, if a window was broken and that window was repaired in very quick fashion, that the expectation in and around those properties was that it would be a clean, safe environment, and crime rates actually went down. In those areas where the windows were left in broken and the buildings in states of disrepair, they had higher crime rates because the expectation was that there was not the same level of care in those areas.
Thank you, and that helps a lot. It goes back to, for me, we were talking, we've been following Kansas City, Independence, all of them, any of the articles we've been saving, and I'm not lying to you, and I'm a highlighter and all that stuff. I'm kind of that brained. But the thing that we're finding out is those people that are bitterly opposed to the programs, and I'm not saying this is a perfect program yet by any means. You got to know that. The remarkable thing is that landlords who were bitterly opposed in a lot of these cases in the creation have been big success stories. They've bought into it. And the key is we've got to have some kind of buy-in. To me, it's worth all the pain and anguish that we have to go through if we help, especially the people that are in need of this care. I'm talking children, I'm talking about elderly, I'm talking about people that have no means of saying, help me, and they don't even know that they need help, some of them. Also that we found out in the Kansas City especially that good landlords got caught up in the regulatory and emotional backlash against the bad ones. I mean, I'm telling you that even the most elegant, it's the phrase that they use, it's the cost of doing business if it's the money. It's a cost of doing a business, and this is a business. I think we've got some things to tweak by far, but I commend the staff. You know, they've been working on this, some of them for 3 years, and taking the challenge, and that's what the council said. And there's a couple of council persons weren't on the council back then. This was emphatically in our strategic planning, was the two staff to fix the problem with our housing, with poor rental properties, and it's a start. The key is hopefully it will start people trying to take care of the property. We see it all over the city right now with what our codes enforcement have done. And remember, we only just added our second codes person. They're doing a great job for only 2 people with, what do we have, 23,000 people. Two people on codes. Now, the thing that is exciting is I see people cleaning up their properties on their own. They're trying to do a good job. We've had a lot of houses, and again, staff's done a great job with houses that have been condemned. Houses that are being liened on. They're putting liens on the property. Fix it. And it's not an aggressive, terrible thing. It's here, we're going to show you how to do this. It's going to be a good thing, and we can see it all over town. Honestly, we've just got to work on this a little longer. So we're just not quite there yet, but this is exciting. Looking around at Belton, there are good things happening, and really appreciate staff. Attorney, do you have anything you want to add tonight, or anything great? I got to tell you that I have notebooks full of data that we've been pulling in to check, and it's not a perfect science. We know that, and we apologize if anybody doesn't see that, but we've got a lot of things going on in this city. And so, again, with that, any other final comments? Councilman Lathrop first, then Councilman Savage, then Councilman Van Winkle.
Well, I have one.
You're last.
You know, we're talking.
That wasn't me. Could you silence those out there, please? Anybody? Okay, go ahead.
Well, we're talking about health and welfare of everybody in the city. That has to include housing too, and on housing, our code enforcement is taking care of those. And we're not charging them for doing that other than kicking them out of their house or something. But yes, we need the whole slate work, and we have some housing that are bad too. Got some of the same conditions that some of these rentals have. Not quite as many, I hope.
Amen. Councilman Savage, you were next.
Sir, yes, you had, you'd made comment on several parts of, I don't recall the specifics, but you said drugs and you said water lines running 2 or 3 units, things like that. I don't see where this inspection has a lot to do with some of the comments that you made.
Okay, about?
Well, one was drugs in the walls. I don't recall the type of drug, but another was that there are 1 water line running 3 units. There were several other items that you said under health, and I'm not seeing where we're covering that. You said it had to do with children, it had to do with various things, and we've got these things, and this indicating that was going to fix all that. And
okay.
I'm not seeing that.
And where we were a little bit remiss, and I apologize to everybody, we got to show people pictures. We've got to take pictures when these people go in and find these houses full of everything that you don't want to see. We've got to show those pictures to people. We have to, because most people are visual. And you got to know that the water, one of the big things with all the water we've had this year, we have lots of people that have sewage in their basements and landlords that don't fix it. They just leave it. And I've had people move and call me and say, could you make sure that they fix this for the next person? And they know, because that mold, is it going to come back? I don't know. Probably so. It's a very dangerous situation, and we see this kind of stuff all the time. How many people you think in our older housing have the asbestos tiles? I think we did at one time in our house. It's 50 years old, and we got rid of ours. But again, what's going to be the effect? We don't know exactly what the effect is. On the water lines, I don't know directly. I was talking about meters. I don't know about water lines.
Well, I think you were talking about potable water, and I just wasn't sure. This does cover that you want a working bathroom.
Right.
Obviously, and I understand that, but it seemed like you covered several items that's really not a part of this piece.
Well, there's a lot of people that don't have sinks in their apartments, Stephen. There are, I mean, it's horrible. I mean, until you see it, that's why we got to have pictures. Until you see it yourselves, and people are afraid. They're afraid of the recourse, that if they do tell somebody something about their property, that they're going to get kicked, and then they won't get out. And we see it every day. Again, though, do I think we're ready? You're next, though. I
I
apologize.
was trying to direct you to Stephanie, who'd been trying to get your attention.
Well, I said he was first, but you're first. Ladies first. Go ahead, Steph.
I wonder if we might consider, this might be crazy, I don't know, an incentive program for people to report potential unlicensed dwellings or rental properties.
That's interesting. We can toss that one around a little bit. Well, you know, I can't believe with crime, what is it, Chief, in the city, they're giving like $25,000 for those murder cases, any kind of information? I mean, has that been successful?
Tips hotline up to 25,000.
Up to 25, is that working though? We're not gonna do that for a house, but.
Kansas City's one of the most, one of the best tips programs in the world, actually. They're rated, so yes.
That's something we should consider. I really believe that.
It's not that unusual. I think Lee Summit, I think it was Lee Summit, I saw 2 weeks ago, they were providing a small stipend.
Speaker, sorry.
Lee Summit was providing a small stipend, a certain number of stipends, like per summer for exterior home improvements. I think that was Lee Summit. So it's not unusual if you're looking for some sort of like community improvement effort. Just an idea.
Yeah, the CDBG grants, yeah.
Yeah, you were gonna say something, Councilman.
I was just gonna comment on some of the stuff that you brought up, and I'm assuming Councilman Savage was probably talking about some of these. So you brought up that blight, but everything I read in our inspection program and on here, other thing outside I see is handrail secure and visible address. So I don't know how the rental inspection is gonna take care of blight. So you brought that up, how it's gonna take care of blight. I don't see how this is gonna do that. You brought up hoarders, and trust me, what I do for a living, I go in people's houses all the time, so I see hoarders. I got pictures on my phone of hoarders. But if it's a rental unit, so we're gonna punish the landlord and take away his business license if he has a hoarder? Is that what I got out of that, or is that?
Well, I don't see that happening, but.
Well, you brought up hoarders, so I'm talking about.
That's a problem.
It's a problem, but we're not gonna punish the business owner because he has a hoarder in there, right?
Well, it's his responsibility.
Okay.
Especially if it's like a fire situation where you can't get out of the building.
Right. I guess, I mean, it talks about making sure you have a proper egress out to safety. I mean, I get you gotta have 2 exits. You brought up asbestos tiles 3 or 4 times tonight. I don't see anywhere on here that's gonna talk about tiles, or are they gonna pull tiles up to make sure they have asbestos in them? Or what, I mean, how are they gonna do that? And then the last thing I bring up is, so we go in there and we condemn this property. Now I mean, it's good for the person to leave, but I mean, they gotta be the ones that self-report a bad property or a bad landlord to me. If we help them and we're gonna kick them out, and if it's, I mean, someone brought up something about cheap housing, I mean, they're gonna lose that if it's not taken care of.
Okay, I'm gonna go back to blight first.
Okay.
And you were big on this.
Oh, I love
yourself.
codes. I want codes to take care of blight.
You wanna talk about the outside of the house. That's your big hoorah, is let's get the outside, which I agree with. We need to do the outside also. It does help if people report those, because right now, we're pretty much, aren't we complaint driven by, in our codes, pretty much? Pretty much driven by complaints. And if people will say, and it gets tough, I gotta tell you that, and then the first thing you get, and maybe you get those as a council person, how come my neighbor called on me?
Tell them your neighbors called on you, is that what I tell them? We're too busy to worry about an individual home. I get that, we don't have enough codes people to worry about an individual home majority of the time unless you're looking at another issue, but most of our codes violations are because someone turned somebody in.
And we
I
talked
agree with
about
that.
this, is that, yes, it's gonna be great to help clean up the outside, but you can't assume that the inside is good. You can't assume that. You can't assume that it's safe. Now, I'm a constitutional kind of person. I have some real indigestion about searches and all that, but I gotta say that when I start thinking about some family tonight, I read tomorrow that they died in a fire because of electrical problems or because of carbon monoxide, or it could be anything.
I guess my question to you, the city, if we found a house that the outside was very blighted and had ungodly amount of things in it, like cars and stuff in the backyard, are we going on the inside of this house if it's owned by an individual? Or are we only doing it if it's a rental unit?
Go ahead, Brian or Dave.
No, we do have an existing property maintenance code that pertains and addresses that question: junk, trash, and debris, exterior property maintenance. And we only inspect the exterior. Now, if there is a situation where the police have access to the interior of the building, they can contact the chief building official to come do an inspection with them, but we have to be granted access to the interior of the building.
I guess I go back to, we're picking on rental units that a lot of these are gonna be nice, and we're dealing with the 20% again. 80% typically are probably gonna be in nice, orderly fashion, and we're worried about the 20%. But the same thing is gonna be applying to individual homes that are owned by the people that occupy it. And I had a guy call me today and tell me to go check out this house on Melody Lane, and I'm like, I couldn't believe all the stuff in the front yard and the backyard, and I just shake my head. Are we gonna go inside that house and make sure they have an egress on there, or if they're not hoarders, or all this other stuff that we're trying to do with rentals?
Did you turn that in?
Not at the present time, Mayor. You told me to worry about my own.
Yeah. You can notify the council people in that ward, though.
Notify us.
Yeah, well, and
went by it this afternoon, so.
What we do in that situation, we had one a week ago. We were out on junk, trash, and debris. I went along on the inspection. I saw that I could push my hand through the siding in that house. Now, we're trying to make contact with that homeowner to allow us inside that unit to do an inspection on his interior of his house also. He's not gonna let us in the house. So our next step is a search warrant, because I have reasonable suspicion that that is a dangerous building on the inside of that house. So
Is that a rental or is that a home occupied?
it's a home occupied, he's been in his house for 30 years. Hasn't mowed his grass, hasn't trimmed his trees. Upon our inspection to try to abate the yard, it's gonna take a bulldozer. Also, while we're at the house, we noticed the condition of the house, no soffits, holes. So at that point in time, then it becomes another inspection to try to get in the house. Our code enforcement is complaint driven, but we don't drive down the street with blinders. We take the time, if we're driving down the street for a complaint, to take note, either going or coming from that complaint of other. We may go on one street for one complaint and come off with 9 violations from other properties on one complaint, different addresses.
I'm always going to support codes, because I did that 20 years ago when I was on council, and I'll do it today, because I said in our meeting a couple months ago, fixing crime, you got to fix your subdivisions to fix crime. And to help with crime, we gotta fix our subdivisions. So I will never, and even when a person calls me and says they got turned in by their neighbor and the codes people are out there harassing them, I'm gonna stand by the codes people. I'm gonna help them try to fix their situation, but we gotta fix the blight in our community, and I don't know if the rental inspection program is gonna be that, what we're looking for.
Well, I'll come back to you on that comment. You've told me how many times that you support.
I do support it, but I want it to be not every 2 years.
Okay, that's your big thing. Okay, Councilman Trutzel.
In reference to the outside of the building, really comes back to the inspector. You know, when we sell a house, they do an inspection on the inside and the outside. So my question really becomes is, if you direct the inspector to make a quick assessment of the outside of the building, he could do that. He could walk around and say, well, this house has got problems that need to be taken care of. You know, unless you identify him only as an inside inspector, he could do an outside as well, a quick survey of that.
I guess my question to Councilman Trutzel, I think my nephew just had one of those done, but I think it's like $185 for that guy to come out and inspect, right?
That is exactly right.
Okay.
So, you know, the $50 here, or $75 is, you know, if you're gonna have to, $75, maybe say only the inside. But he could also walk around the outside, well, it's like, oh, this is, you know, this is a lot of, there's broken window out here, or this needs to be painted, or rotted wood, or whatever the case might be. And it may not, for $50, he may not do that, I understand. So, but you're exactly right. And the $185 is probably cheap compared to what some of it costs. More like $350.
I just
That's
don't
right.
see, you know, $50 is gonna get that in-depth of inspection.
And that's right. I would agree.
So if you bought a new house, are you gonna pay for that inspection?
Sure I will.
You daggum right you are. You wanna know. You don't wanna go into a house that's not ready and safe.
I have one
Question,
thing.
Councilman Lathrop.
How many years are you gonna pay for that in a row?
What's that?
How many years are you gonna go before you pay for your inspection again?
Well, I've been in my house for 15 years and I never paid for another one, so.
Okay.
And that's kinda like what I would say, that's why I go back with, if you have a good landlord who has a great tenant and they're all happy, why do we have to get in there? And that's, I mean, I get we're trying to take care of the 20%. And it might be less than that, but I understand what we're trying to do. But I just think we gotta figure out a way to make this where it's not, we have great renters who have great landlords and we're trying to punish them. And I'm just trying to figure out how we can accomplish what we really want to accomplish without affecting them too much.
Councilwoman Davidson.
I think looking at this, like, this rental inspection is supposed to be the end-all, be-all of, and fix all of the blight, or is kind of the wrong way to look at it. I think it's just a piece of the puzzle. And to just look at it in that perspective.
And you brought up a good point here too. Were you finished? Okay, that our data showed us that 79% of all rental property isn't owned in Belton. We had people as far away as Australia, Texas, California. A lot of the people that own the property, 79% are not Belton residents. So I just thought that was a good tidbit. Yes, sir.
Any data on that 79%, probably not enough time now, but yet, any data on that 79%, how many of those folks have known problem properties? Because I know we know some problem properties.
No, we'd have to look at that.
Be interesting.
And we have been tying, and that's a good point, because we're tying the codes violations to the properties, but it's going to take staff a little more time to get that intricate.
Yeah,
Well,
It's almost impossible.
yeah, without going through an inspection first, or, you know, to be able to, that first initial year of inspections might be helpful, but.
I hear that, but again, we do know, and it's been stated a time or two, that we got a pretty good idea where the problem properties are. I mean, that's not, it'd take a blind person not to know a good portion of them, maybe not all of them. But I would also, as I've said before, I would like to see this go back and really look at the time on this, spread this thing out a little bit. I think 2 years is too often. I'll just make that statement.
Well, I think
And,
we're gonna
a
talk
little more
about it in
data
the future,
also.
maybe. Any other comments on this side either? Wow.
Mr. Mayor, before you conclude this evening, I would like to make a comment that because of the questions that came to light and the additional information, I will be asking the council this evening to move the item for the first read so that we can update the code based upon council's direction and bring it to the 10/22 meeting. So while it is on the agenda for this evening, that will be my recommendation to the council.
Do we need to have legal, do we have to do anything?
Not right now.
Okey-doke. All right, with that, we're gonna end our work session, and we're gonna take a quick break and come back and start the regular meeting. Thank you.
Be back at 7:30.
7:30, yeah. You're right. Like to call regular meeting to order. Will be led in the Pledge of Allegiance by Councilman Savage.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Could we have the roll call?
Mayor Davis,
Here.
Councilmember Savage,
Here.
Councilmember Lathrop,
Here.
Councilmember Trutzel,
Here.
Councilmember Van Winkle,
Here.
Councilmember Clark, Councilmember Finn, Councilmember Davidson, Councilmember Peak.
Consent agenda, one motion, non-debatable, to approve the recommendations noted. Any member of the council may ask for an item to be taken from the consent agenda for discussion and separate action. Sir.
I'd like to take F off.
F. Okay. Anybody else?
I would like to have I and J.
We're gonna have the alphabet here. Okay. Another one? Anybody else? Okay. No, okay.
You need a motion on it?
Yes, we do.
You got one.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. Let's go back to, I gotta do it in order here. Which one alphabetical?
F.
F is first. Okay, let's go down to F. And who brought that one up?
I brought it up.
What's the point? No, let's read that one first. You want to read that motion?
A motion approving renewal of Blue Cross and Blue Shield employee-provided health insurance, U.S. Able employee-provided long-term disability insurance, Delta Dental employee-provided dental insurance, and Superior Vision employee-provided vision insurance beginning January 1, 2020.
All right.
My only question is, and I just wanted to confirm, there's none of the plans listed here or in the packet for I can see exactly what we offer our employees. And I do know like some of our communities around here changed their Blue Cross Blue Shield network where it doesn't access our local hospitals and doctors. So my concern is I want to make sure that our base plan for the employees still accesses our local doctors and hospitals.
Right. There are no changes on our plan that we
But
had
still
from
the
last year.
Preferred
so-
Care Blue network?
Yes.
Okay, because I know the school district went out and added like Blue Select Plus, and it doesn't allow them to access the local doctors and hospitals. And since, to me, Belton Regional is a good partner of ours, I just want to make sure our employees can still access local doctors and hospitals. That was my only concern. I love the 2.6% rate increase, by the way.
I don't like any.
If you could get 0 from an insurance company, that's great, but 2.6 is like 0. I got a 27% yesterday, so.
So you're all right with that? Do we want to do these one by one now?
Yes.
Okay, so I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. Which one's next? I or J?
Aye.
Aye, okay. Yeah, well, I'm scrambling here. Motion approving resolution, is that a resolution? R 2019-92.
A resolution approving actions of the city manager to engage Bright Construction LLC for emergency repair of sinkhole located at Bradford Lane and Mallory Drive, and ratifying task agreement number 2019-7 in the amount of $51,793.84.
Councilman Lather?
My question is the same on both of these. They've already been done. So why do we need to say you did a good job? Is that what we're wanting?
No, anything over $10,000 needs to come to the council that hasn't been prior approved. The reason this is in front of you, it's an emergency repair. When we have a sinkhole, we put our resources to it immediately in order to get that repaired. And so this is in front of you for approval and to make you aware that we've had additional sinkholes.
Yeah, it just said we approved what you did, and I didn't know we had to do that.
Michael Christopher, how many sinkholes are we up to now?
You know, I'm actually going to defer to Monty Johnson. I think he's the one keeping track as they've been spread out throughout town.
Wow, you really shuffled that off pretty fast.
Good learning.
Really learning fast.
As of 5 o'clock today,
Okay, good point.
there was 19 total for this year.
19 already.
And please forgive me, I've had a long day, but I want to say 8 of those 9 have been done in-house. The others had to be done, and please don't quote me. That number may be a 1 or 2 off, but yeah, a lot of them have been done by the on-call contractors. I think they've done a really good job for us.
I'm going to flip back to Michael Christopher now again. What do you anticipate that we're going to find when it rains really hard this week?
Yeah, he's back there. Well, the last big rain, we actually had a stream bank failure, which did just get repaired. And so we have the full gauntlet of anything could happen at this rate. We could have sinkholes or other stream banks failing that just so happen to have sewer lines that run along them.
So sewer lines and stream banks. Okay. Have we built any of those in the last 20 years?
None come to mind.
Okay, that makes me feel better. You know, that we haven't done it recently. Be okay. So can we anticipate more of these happening?
I would say yes. Yeah.
I'd say so too, probably. Questions or comments there? Okay. Wow, thank you, both. So we're at, do we want to approve them one by one, don't we? I'd entertain a motion again.
Move to approve.
Motion to approve?
Second.
And a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. J, motion approving resolution R 2019-93.
A resolution approving actions of the city manager to engage the Janet Group for emergency repair of sinkholes located at 805 Cortland Court and 804 Minnie Avenue, and ratifying task agreement number 2019-3 in the amount of $81,560.
Present.
Second. Motion any second. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. Moving on. Get down through this. Personal appearances. First one we have here is Diane, you want to come up here? Do you want to go out, Mayor Pro Tem? I'm not going to get up, please. As I do, so we're going to have you standing up there. Oh, we got everybody coming up tonight. That's a good deal. Do you want to tell, you can, Yeah. Well, you got the whole staff here tonight. Do you want to introduce everybody, please? And you can speak into this.
That's Sally Peterson Smith. She's the owner of Whistle Stop Antiques, and as of today, she's the secretary for the board. We have Valerie McCoy, who has been our treasurer for the last 3 years, and Karen Fletcher with Fletcher's Forms, who is our president-elect, will be our president next year, and Lori Kirkland, who is my assistant.
Almost missed that last one.
Almost forgot her last name.
You work with every day. Well, the Chamber's done a great job. With that, October 16th, 2019 is National Chamber of Commerce Day. We've got a whole month of this, don't we, going on? Okay. So, whereas local business is integral to the growth and longevity of a community, and whereas the strength of local business is dependent on the support of the community, and whereas the Belton Chamber of Commerce is partners with both the community and local businesses of Belton, and whereas the Belton Chamber of Commerce tirelessly promotes and supports Belton. Now therefore, I, Jeff Davis, Mayor of the City of Belton, do proclaim October 16, 2019, National Chamber of Commerce Day in Belton, Missouri, and encourage all businesses and community members to take advantage of the resources available from the Belton Chamber and celebrate the Belton Chamber for their contributions. In witness thereof, I hereunto set my hand and cause the seal of the city be affixed to the City of Belton, Missouri, this day, the 8th of October, in the year of our Lord, 2019. Mayor Pro Tem, you're going to give them that one and get a picture maybe? You're going to get everybody in here. Get around her, maybe all of you. Get in close, Sally. Get on the other side of Mayor Pro Tem there and even it out. How many members do we have in the Chamber of Commerce right now, ladies?
Well, over 300.
Over 300 members. It's outstanding. Well, we appreciate all you do for our city.
Thank you.
Good job. Yes, ma'am. Okay. Proclamation for National Fire Week. Chief, come on up. Wow, this is a mouthful. Okay. Whereas the City of Belton is committed to ensuring the safety and security of all those living in and visiting Belton, and whereas many of today's products and furnishings produce toxic gases, smoke, when burned, making it impossible to see and breathe within moments, and whereas these conditions contribute to much smaller window of time for people to safely escape a home fire, with people having as little as 2 minutes to escape from the time the smoke alarm sounds, and whereas a home fire escape plan provides the skill set and know-how to quickly and safely escape a home fire situation. And whereas home fire escape plans should be developed by all members of the household and should include household smoke alarms, 2 exits from every room, a path to the outside, and a meeting place outside. And whereas practicing a home fire escape plan twice a year ensures that everyone in the household knows what to do in a real fire situation. And whereas Belton's first responders are dedicated to reducing the occurrence of home fires and home injuries through prevention and protection education. And whereas Belton's residents are responsive to public education measures and can take personal steps to increase their safety from fire, especially in their homes. And whereas the 2019 Fire Prevention Week theme, not every hero wears a cape. Plan and practice your escape. That's good. That's really good. So, recognize everyday people who motivate their households to develop and practice a home fire escape plan. Now, therefore, I, Jeff Davis, Mayor of the City of Belton, call upon all citizens of Belton to observe the week of October 6th through 12th, 2019 as National Fire Prevention Week and to develop a home fire escape plan with all members of their household and practice it twice a year in witness thereof. My hand and all that. Thank you so much. Thank you, Chief. Get a picture. Got to get some pictures. Thank you very much. We appreciate. How much drilling are you doing right now? You get any training going on?
I didn't think that was in my...
No, it's okay. Yeah, they're doing a good job. We appreciate you guys. Okay, moving on. Ordinances. A, A motion approving both readings of Bill number 2019-51.
An ordinance approving the final plat for Aspen Dental in the city of Belton, a tract of land located in the west half of Section 12, Township 46 North, Range 33 West, in the city of Belton, Cass County, Missouri, and authorizing the mayor and city clerk to sign the plat for recording with the Cass County Recorder's Office.
Motion and second. Discussion. Councilman Lathrop.
In this one, we turned down in the past because it
long
wasn't a
time
sales
ago.
tax presented?
Anybody want to address that one?
Yes, previously this item was brought to the council, but the developer amended his plan to include there would be additional development in that area and agreed that the other area would be sales tax producing. So in order to help promote this area, bringing in Aspen Dental, council's aware of this, Planning Commission has heard it and approved it, and then this is in front of you, knowing that future buildings will, as it's developed, will have sales tax producing entities there.
And then we'll get paid back for the road and stuff all out of that. Okay.
And it's kind of an obscure lot anyway, really. It's kind
Yeah, I
of a
know,
tough
it's
lot.
right there on the corner.
Any other discussion? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Move for
Opposed?
Sorry.
That motion passes.
Move for second reading.
Motion and second for second reading. Any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. A, a motion approving the second reading of Bill number 2019-51.
An ordinance approving the final plat for Aspen Dental in the city of Belton, a tract of land located in the west half of Section 12, Township 46 North, Range 33 West, in the city of Belton, Cass County, Missouri, and authorizing the mayor and city clerk to sign the final plat for recording with the Cass County Recorder's Office.
Present. Motion and second. Discussion. Seeing none. Roll call, please.
Mayor Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember Clark, Trutzel,
Aye.
Lathrop,
Aye.
Van Winkle,
Aye.
Savage,
Aye.
Peak, Davidson.
That motion passes. B, a motion approving both readings of Bill number 2019-52.
An ordinance approving the 2020 intergovernmental agreement with the Mid-America Regional Council Solid Waste Management District for participating in the Regional Household Hazardous Waste Program.
Present. Second.
And second. Motion and second. We get them? Okay. Any discussion? Councilman?
I mean, this is a hazardous waste program that we just had over in Raymore, that we share with Raymore. I didn't look at the bill because we've been doing this for 20 years. I mean, how much does this cost? Is it like 2,800 or 28,000 or something like that?
Yeah, it's a larger amount. Don or Monty, do you recall, or
It's $25,249 and some change.
and so we alternate back and forth, and this will approve us for the next year.
And we can send them, can they still go to like Lee Summit and drop off stuff on their own if they want to throughout the year?
Yes.
I don't know,
And-
do we promote that like through water bills every now and then for them, or?
Well, we've got it on our website and our Facebook page that shows all the other alternating sites that are available as well, and the schedule for those too.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes.
Move for second reading?
Second.
Motion and a second reading. How about discussion? Seeing none? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. B, a motion approving the second reading of Bill number 2019-52.
An ordinance approving the 2020 intergovernmental agreement with the Mid-America Regional Council Solid Waste Management District for participating in the Regional Household Hazardous Waste Program.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. Seeing none.
Councilmember Clark,
Aye.
Van Winkle,
Aye.
Trutzel,
Aye.
Lathrop,
Aye.
Davidson, Savage,
Aye.
Peak, Mayor Davis.
Aye. That motion passes. C, a motion approving both readings of Bill number 2019-53.
An ordinance authorizing the Chief of Police to sign the agreement between the Missouri Department of Transportation and the Belton Police Department for Destination Safe Grant.
Present.
Second.
Motion and second. Discussion. How many years have we done this? Go ahead, Chief.
This is actually a new grant. I brought with, or I asked tonight that Sergeant John Baker be here. Sergeant Baker is the head of our traffic division. Sergeant Peak is also here. This is a grant through MoDOT, Safe Destination, and looking for innovative education programs. So we charged Sergeant Baker and Sergeant Peak to come up with something innovative, and I would invite them up to the microphone there to describe this project, because I find it fairly innovative.
Yeah, you'd better duck. Have your forehead all over that one.
Clearly wasn't planned for me being here. So what we have is the Destination Safe Grant is through MoDOT with the Mid-America Regional Council as the controlling body of it. It's the grants that they want you to do are supposed to be multifaceted in that they cover multiple agencies, so they're not just putting money in single pots. So what we did was, to meet their requirement, is we've teamed up with Mary Cummings and the students at Belton Service Learning, because they are quite, as MoDOT tells me, they are rock stars in the area of traffic safety. And then as the coordinator for Cass County's traffic safety program, we've come up with an idea we would help sponsor a teen safe driving summit, which we've kind of been putting on hold, waiting for this to get approved, so that we would be inviting the different high schools within the county and the immediate close Jackson County high schools to participate in a teen driving summit. And that would be put on, we're looking at March, April timeframe. So part of that funding would go to support that particular summit. And then also, we came up with a driving simulation idea.
Here's the innovative part.
Yeah. Okay. So what we've seen in some places is that they're using motorized vehicles and having people, students, young adults, drive these vehicles through obstacle courses, wearing different types of impairment goggles. But those types of vehicles require gasoline and maintenance, and well, I'm not a mechanical kind of person. But pedal cars are slower, they're safer. I don't have to worry about them crashing into speed bumps and curbs. Wow. But the idea is that we would use the pedal cars along with some of our already existing equipment, like our traffic cones and our trailer, to create a mobile education platform that we could take to the summit and or local community fairs and events throughout the county and in our immediate region to help teach young drivers and young adults some of the hazards that come with impaired driving or distracted driving, because we'd be able to put them on their phone. All right, you text with your friend and drive this pedal car around our course, or put on the goggles that simulate different levels of intoxication and or marijuana impairment. So that's what we proposed to the folks at Destination Safe, and they have awarded us, I think it was $28.95 or
$2,900.
About $2,900 towards that program.
These are supposed to be adult-sized pedal cars, so we would invite the council and the mayor to come participate and see if they're actually adult-sized pedal cars. So
might be able to get in. I don't know if I can ever get out.
We'll build a sidecar for you.
Yeah. Grease my hips. Well, that's outstanding. Any questions or comments from council? But they're not doing that in the police department in Grandview, are they? Okay.
We'll certainly loan it to them, though.
Outstanding. We appreciate it. Any questions? Oh, oh, you're afraid I'm going to break it. That's good stuff. That's good stuff. Thank you, sir. We appreciate it. Any other discussion on the issue? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes.
Move for second reading.
Second.
Motion is second for a second reading. Any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. C, a motion approving the second reading of Bill number 2019-53.
An ordinance authorizing the Chief of Police to sign the agreement between the Missouri Department of Transportation and the Belton Police Department for Destination Safe Grant.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. Seeing none.
Councilmember Lathrop,
Aye.
Van Winkle,
Aye.
Peak, Trutzel,
Aye.
Davidson, Savage,
Aye.
Clark, Mayor Davis.
Aye. And that motion passes, and congratulations to all the police department. That's good work, and that'll be neat. And they did a great job with the seat belt, and we're proud of what they've done. And it's a great partnership with the school district, so good stuff. Keep up the good work. D was the motion approving the first bill number 1954, so we'll have to have a motion
To postpone.
Motion to postpone. Motion, Commissioner
Second.
Hand. A second to postpone. Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind, I would like additional direction from the council. We've heard a lot of varying items tonight about wanting to see it, and it's difficult for staff to go back and write something when we're getting direction on 2 or 3 different areas. Basically, so I need a summary from the council as to what they're looking at, whether it's a 2-year, 5-year change of tenant, what that looks like. And I've just kind of outlined these to try to break it down so that we can bring something back to you, or do you want us to bring it back at all?
Councilwoman Davidson, we were all talking about it over there. What were we thinking? We were saying, what was our thoughts?
I actually don't think we're all that far apart, those of us that are kind of on the fence. I would be in favor of maybe a 3-year program, and just in terms of being able to administer the program, I do think it makes the most sense for staff and resources to inspect the homes at the time of their renewal. Otherwise, I don't really know how you would effectively oversee that if it's happening at the change of tenant, even though I understand that that's more convenient for the landlord and the tenant. So that's kind of where I'm at. I personally would feel more comfortable if we had more specifics around how we plan to build a database in order to capture a list of landlords and properties. But, you know, I can be persuaded on that.
Other comments or questions? Councilman Clark.
I'm, along with Councilwoman Davidson, I think a longer period of time I'd probably be in agreement with. I don't know if 3 or 5 or, I'd actually probably be in agreement of doing it, making sure everybody does one in 2020 and then giving them a 3 or 4 year period after that so we can get it started, and then give them a 3 or 4 year period before they have to do it again. Me personally, if we're going to make everybody that owns 20 houses, if somebody has Belton Plaza Apartments, I pick on them because I know their name. If they got 40 units, I'd rather see all them units be inspected every time, just because of the fact that if they give us 25%, they're going to cherry pick those 25%. And then I think we give them a 4 year period of time, whatever we agree on, before they do it again. But if we can't do it as the water bills come up, which I would love to do, but since we can't figure that one out, I'd also like to see exactly what, I mean, we keep talking about exterior stuff, but I don't see anything in here that talks about exterior, what we're going to inspect. So I'd like to have more of a defined list of what the inspector's going to look at when they go out there.
Is the council wanting us to expand inspections from just health and safety of the interior, those basic 5 areas that we talked about? Are you wanting to see it expanded to an exterior structure?
Control blight, yes. Me personally, yes. But how are we going to control blight if we don't inspect the outside, if we only worry about the inside?
Okay.
Other people with other direction to count to the, yes, sir.
I would agree with trying to control blight if we're going to do this, for sure. I can't think that would add a lot if we'd be reasonable about it. So I'd agree with that. I'm thinking in the line of 5 years would be more realistic unless you find some major issues. And if you do, then maybe that would pull in a quicker inspection. However, as I've mentioned to you, and I probably won't take the time to go into the detail. It was mentioned to me out here, still look at the options, if there could be an option on change of tenant through a water bill option that we would know. Let's look at that a little bit farther, as I talked to you about earlier. Do I need to describe any farther right now?
No, but I do want to discuss that a little bit and talk about the, how the data is in there for our water meters now. When you shared that with me a little bit, can you go ahead and share, I mean, if we're going to talk about it, let's go ahead and talk about it. Can you go ahead and extend it out a little bit, because I tried to briefly describe it to Sheila, who has the records, and we do the utility billing and we set up the accounts. So can you expand on that a little bit, please?
Well, I will try. I'm limited on information also. I know from a individual house, we're supposed to be hooked into separate water meters already. I know we're supposed to be also hooked into separate sewers. That's in our codes and has been for a very long time. What I don't know is if the apartments and those type things, if that's metered through one meter or what the circumstances is. So we need to know that, but somehow the point is to get the water bill, as was suggested to me. This is not my idea right now, but I'm wanting to look into it deeper. Get that water bill directly to the person that lives in that property. It needs to go direct to them. Then we do know when there's a change. And I do know there's also some concern about some property owners want that water in their name so that it's never turned off. Well, I believe the city, I believe I've used it, has the option of where it automatically goes back. So, but you'll still see the change. The city will see that automatically go back to the property owner in the name of, if it gets ready to be shut off. That can be handled. I know it can on the other utilities, so I believe it can here on the water. We need to look at that a little bit. Okay. But somehow we need to find out if there's an option, is the point, to send that water bill direct to the resident, the one that's living there. Then you've got more direct communication with that particular person to start with, which I think is necessary, I think we need. And then it gives us an idea of when that property changes. And that's when it needs to be inspected. In most cases, probably every time.
Okay. Sheila?
To answer some of your questions, first of all, we have a lot of rental properties that, for example, duplexes, apartments in people's garages, apartments that are maybe an upstairs apartment and then a downstairs apartment in the same house, the same dwelling unit. They went in and remodeled and made 2 apartments inside the same house. In all those situations, and mostly for most of our duplexes, they have a single water meter. So, and in those situations, the water bill is going to the owner, because the renters, we don't know how much water one renter uses versus another, and so there would be no way to split that up. Also, we do have occasions where a landlord owner can do revert to owner, so that when the renter moves out, the water bill gets put back into the owner's name, but we would have no way of enforcing or making sure that if a new tenant came in, that the owner of the property would then cause the new renter to come in and put the deposit down. Councilman Davidson, you asked kind of how we got our information to kind of start the program. In the city, we have renters who have a different deposit amount than owners. The reason, and I was not here when that happened, but it was my understanding that the reason that the council chose to make a higher deposit for renters is because we had situations where renters were having large water bills and then they would leave, and we were sending those to collection. And so to lower the city's risk of not collecting, and to lower the amount that the city was not collecting until a much later date, the deposit amount was greater. And so I was thinking when Alexa had brought that up, that might be a concern. Right now, when we do have, if you require renters to have the water only in their name, then it just happens that renters are more transient and they have an easier ability to leave than a homeowner does and not pay a bill. Just a thought that flipped across my mind.
Is there any, with all of the data that we get, is there any other options that we can know when someone's in there? Right now, you've brought up where if you've got an upper and a lower, an apartment that's been fixed, we're probably not gonna know about that anyway. Not saying we don't, saying we're probably not. So is there any tools that we have that we can put together more data so we can know what's going on in the city? If we're going to do this, we want to do it as correctly as possible and as fairly as possible.
I completely understand. What we have found since we started reaching out to property owners that are doing rentals, we started by just taking running the data to figure out who has renter deposits. And that's how we started. A lot of those owners rent multiple properties. Then as we started the new trash service, where you are required to have a single trash cart and you can't have additional trash on the ground, we actually started having more people come in, and we kind of found additional owners and apartments that we didn't know about before. And so how Independence did it is they started with what they knew, and then as the years have went on that the rental program has been in place, they start finding people that are not in compliance. I don't know how long it will take for Independence to find all of theirs. I don't know how long, if the council decides to put a rental inspection program mirroring Independence, how long it would take us to find ours. But nothing's going to be instantaneous. We're going to start with the lowest hanging fruit, and we're going to continue building on that. And I think that we will have the majority within the first couple of years.
So did I hear you say, and I don't want to put words in your mouth here, so you can tell me no, that's a good answer also. Through trash containers, maybe one option when you know some changes made. And I think you mentioned one other possibility. Is there any looking into that might give us security? And because we're already admitting the fact that it's going to take some time to iron and pull all this together. So I'm asking, let's take some time and figure out a way to know when these people move in and move out.
I don't think that trash containers will be a good way to find out if people are moving in or out, because the trash cart stays with the residents. So once we deliver that, unless the person that lives in that house, the renter, takes that trash cart with them and doesn't leave it for the new renter, they wouldn't have any reason to contact us. And I mean, one possibility could be going and picking up trash carts and delivering those, but that would take additional staff because that is very time consuming, and it took a lot of work just switching out trash carts for different sizes and delivering second and third trash carts to some of our citizens that requested those. And so where I don't know that I would have thought it was that big of a deal before this, having WCA come on board and changing, now I think that it would require additional staff if we did something like that.
So I'd still say that at least it ought to be looked at. I'm not saying it's an option. It ought to be looked at. If we could figure out how to somehow tie this together with move in and move out. Most of your problem properties, I think I might be not going too far out on a limb. They're the one that's going to be flipping tenants quite often, quite regularly. Your long-range tenant is who we're trying to not bother. I mean, that's where I'm trying not to bother those folks. Because it is gonna be a bit of an inconvenience and a hassle. Maybe even the possible option of, this might be a long stretch also, but, would it be possible to knock on the door, talk to the tenant, say, we need to look, or do you want us to look? I don't know. I just hate to see some of these 15, 18-year tenants that's had no problem be all further inconvenienced. Or even 10-year. I'm done. Thank you.
Councilman Lathrop.
Well, if you want some input on this, my idea is 5 years or change of tenant.
Okay, let's discuss that. We've got to know if it's 3 or 5. I got to have a consensus. What are we going to do? Yes.
I like 3. I think 5 years is too long, especially if you've got the huge apartments that if you're only doing a percentage of them every 5 years. I mean, is that how it would be written?
Well, and that's the other clarification, you know, Councilman Clark is referenced, just go ahead and do all of them. You could take the 25% provision. I mean, we put that in there to just try to ebb into it. If it's the council's decision, you could actually pull that provision out and not have it at all, and then just do it every 3 years or 5 years or at change of tenant or.
I like the every 3 years. I mean, I do like the idea of just going in and inspecting everyone.
Okay.
You know, that first year inspecting it all. But then I think 3 years, from my thought, 3 years is probably long enough between.
Well, I'd entertain, yes, go ahead.
I guess I was just trying to maybe expand on what Councilman Savage was saying, and in my head, I was thinking, is there a way to do a split thing where if the water bill is in a private citizen's name who rents, whenever that water bill changes, then we can inspect that house at that time. But if somebody has multiple water bills or multiple addresses in their names, and we put a requirement that they has to be inspected every 2-3 years, but I don't know if we can have a different requirement for people that have like a, so if I rent out to Patrick here and it says his name, if he lives there for 6 years, it never really gets inspected until he moves out, because the water bill's in his name and not mine. But I mean, I go back to, because my question is, how do you inspect like South Fork that, I mean, how many rental homes do we have in South Fork?
Oh.
I mean, how do we know?
Yeah.
Unless they're telling you, unless you go through every property and see who actually owns that property, right? I mean, I'm assuming if South Fork owns that unit, then it'll be listed in the county that the property tax is being paid by whoever that corporation is. Mm-hmm. So I'm just trying to figure out how we can have our cake and eat it too, where the people that are good and we don't, you know, if we could go, I like going off a water bill if we could figure it out, but I just don't know how we can figure it out.
I'm going to ask just for clarification from staff for this point. So is the suggestion that we do a hybrid, like rental inspections occur every 3 years or at change of tenant, whichever is greater?
I love it.
Something like that? Is that kind of your feeling?
How do you do that with a private residence but not a lot in a trailer park, who we don't know when they move out, do we?
Remind me, Sheila, is and Don, you might be able to address this as well, Don Tyler in the back of the room, is which of the manufactured home communities has the centralized water, to address Councilman Clark's question?
We all
have one meter.
All of them except for one have a single meter that the city bills.
Okay.
Are you the one?
Keep
Correct.
all that private, but
Okay.
yeah. 5 years.
That's fine.
5 years.
Yeah.
5 years.
That's what I'm looking for. Or a tenant change. I don't know how that works.
Yeah, I just have to tell the council, tenant change is just gonna be really difficult, and it is. I mean, we have looked at every facet for the last 2.5 years that we've been looking at this program, trying to figure just that out if we could do it, so.
And you understand that's where I have a little bit of a rub there, because obviously I am also sitting here knowing that there are some that's gonna need it more than 3 years.
Yeah.
More than 5 years, more than any number that we set here.
Mhm.
So I'm not sure that we're completely addressing or fixing, and that's why we're kinda racking our brains trying to figure out some other idea. We know the good ones are gonna be good, we know the less than good ones are gonna be less than good. They need inspected more often. And they are gonna be the ones, unfortunately, that's gonna change every 6 months to a year. It's not gonna help you to have any number here if we don't find some solution for this, and I think that's a valid point to make. So maybe we're gonna have to go back and work on this. Maybe we need to I don't know what the answer is. I mean, it's been a few hours here, but maybe it needs more work.
Councilwoman Davidson, then Councilman Trutzel next.
When are license renewals?
It is, all licenses expire on June 30 of each year.
Okay.
The renewal period is July, August, September.
Is it an idea that maybe multifamily or multi-unit establishments be on a different time frame than a single-family home? I don't know, I'm just like throwing out ideas.
A different inspection time frame or a different licensing time frame?
A different inspection time frame, so maybe an apartment complex would be every 2 years, but a single-family home might be every 3 years, or
Could. Again, this is just the council's decision to make.
Right.
Well, yeah.
Are we segregating multifamily as opposed to single family?
Where's our issues at?
Councilman Trutzel.
Yeah.
Councilman Trutzel.
I can live with 3 years. You know, we're trying to make this thing so complicated. We need to do something simple. I mean, we've hashed this around. There's lots of possibilities, but nobody can say this is the way it's the easiest thing to do. So I can live with 3 years and do like we're talking about. And we're trying to do too much with what we're trying to do here, even with the outside of the building. I'd love to see something done, but we're trying to solve all the problems with this one ordinance, and that isn't going to happen. So let's simplify it. And like I said, I can live with 3 years.
So based upon what I just heard and seeing the nodding of heads, would it be correct to say that the majority of you are looking at a 3-year with, and then, and I know you want to look at the exterior, can we stay with the health and safety issues first and allow staff to go back and create a program that might be able to meld into this to look at the exterior for inspection?
I think personally, and maybe if I got it before, I don't remember seeing it, is if independents have inspectors and what they're inspecting, how come we don't have a list on what each item they're inspecting other than a generic list? I mean, are they inspecting?
Those
What are they doing when they go through an inspection is what I'm trying to say.
I requested that from independents and have yet to receive it. That's what I would like to see is, I requested from that program a copy of their inspection list.
I mean, I guess even if you got an inspector and say, hey, can you send me some information on what you guys do when you go to a house in Independence that's rental? I mean, if you went to the inspector, not the city, and just asked the inspectors how they do it.
It's difficult for us to lay out that complete inspection list, so we got direction, what we wanted to
Well, I guess my problem, I don't want to give you directions until I know what's actually on that list. And then it's like, hey, let's add this or add that or whatever. I mean.
Go ahead.
I went to the meeting in Independence, and they check these things. They check, do you have this on your desk? Mm-hmm. These are the 9 things that they check for. Now, while they're in there, the person that that obviously they might see something that is a huge health and safety issue. That's something other than that. They do nothing except for they will notify the city and let them know if they saw something outside. We have codes already for code enforcement violations that that if they see something, they will absolutely pass that on, but they're not going to look for those things specifically. They're worried about this, the inspectors for the rental inspection program. And if they see something that is super dangerous, they're obviously going to call the city and let the city know so that we can deal with it under our code enforcement items.
I just, for $50, I just don't know exactly what, these guys are gonna, and gals, whoever does the inspection, are gonna walk through there, flush toilets, look at, are they gonna check every outlet? Or are they just gonna make sure there's no exposed wire? What do you get for $50? Can't be much.
They're not going to check for, every outlet. What they're looking for is interior health and safety issues, whether, is there exposed wire, is there running water, is there, is the sewer system working, or if they got an area that's plugged up and there's some issues. Those are basic issues that some people go, well, yeah, it's going to work. Well, no, some don't work. And they're going to go over and they're going to check that carbon monoxide detector to make sure that it's got a battery in it. They're going to look at and test the smoke detector and make sure that it's got a battery in it and make sure that it's working. And so those that for $50, it's a basic test to go in it and check those.
I'm ready. So I'd entertain a motion.
Right here.
Right here.
I want to speak first.
Go ahead.
Because of the comment that I made about the outside, I want to say that we're going to support our codes enforcement. They will take care of that. Let's keep this simple if we're going to do it. Let's extend this time as far as we can within reason and still try to pick up the issues that we're trying to correct. So I just want to say, leave the outside alone, keep it simple inside. Because again, I've said I trust our codes enforcement even ahead of this rental inspection. I do, and I think that our citizens should feel like they have a place to call. I've said that before too. We need to put the information out there. I would be okay not even having the inspection.
Okay. I'd entertain a motion.
There's a motion on the table.
No, this is
We're
a consensus.
That's a secondary motion.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, what are we talking about?
Secondary motion to the primary
Giving staff
motion to
direction.
postpone.
To
This is
give
just
staff direction.
Can everybody nod their head if they support 3 years? Can the people that support 5 years please nod their head?
I think I'm whipped.
I sit in the middle.
And then, can I please get a nod of heads if you support keeping in the 25%?
It stays in or you want it out? Just
Yeah.
As opposed to what?
it would just be all up,
All
if you have the
units.
property, you get all of your property inspected on the first time go around.
I guess if you have a individual that owns 25 properties, we're gonna make them inspect 25 properties if they're individual residences. So I don't know why we would subject somebody that has a bunch, because they're making rent off every one of those buildings, so they might as well be inspected also, in my opinion. They shouldn't get a break either. If we're not gonna give a individual that owns all these houses a break, we shouldn't give a apartment complex a break because they're getting paid.
I'm good with that.
Okay, we got a motion, a second, or actually, we've just got a consensus. Do we need anything else?
I think those were the two things that city staff was looking for direction on.
Dave, is there anything else that you can think of?
That's a great start.
Great. Okay.
He kept it
So we're
simple.
done with that?
Motion to postpone, take a vote.
Motion to postpone. We're talking about the
All in
issue.
favor?
Second.
Motion's on the table.
Yeah, it was already first and second, we just need a vote.
Okay, that'd be a roll call, wouldn't it?
No.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? And motion passes. Are we through with all that? City council liaison, are we ready for that part?
We got one more.
Hey,
You have one
man.
more, you've got a resolution, Mayor.
We got another resolution?
94,
94.
2019, it's right there on your screen, 2019-94.
Okay. A motion approving resolution R 2019-94.
Resolution of the City of Belton, Missouri approving a demolition contract between the City of Belton, Missouri and Denton Excavating Incorporated, DBA Midland Wrecking, for the removal of a dangerous structure located at 17219 Chula Vista Drive within the City of Belton, Missouri.
Present. Motion and a second. Any discussion?
Get it
How long
done.
have you been waiting for that
Get
one,
it
guys?
done.
You guys on that end? Yeah. That's a good deal. All right. Any discussion at all? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. City Council liaison.
I'll keep this brief.
Oh, my.
Okay. So due to cooler temperatures and a chance of rain in the forecast, the asphalt contractor at High Blue Wellness has delayed parking lot repairs until this week. So sections in the south and east lot will remain closed during this time. Once repairs are complete, we expect the striping work to begin immediately. Thank you for your continued patience and understanding while they make necessary improvements to our High Blue Wellness Center. Let's see here. You won't want to miss the Kids Night Out, Halloween party on Saturday, October 19th from 5:30 to 10 p.m. at High Blue Wellness Center. Come dressed as the coolest costume contest, and there's cookie decorating, face painting, swimming, pizza, and more. It's going to be a beautiful night, and we hope you'll join us. Kids Night Out is for kids 5 to 12 years old. The cost is $20 for the first kid and $15 for each additional if registered by Friday, October 18th. The cost goes up $5 on that Saturday. If you're looking for your lifeguard certification to work at the Belton Parks this fall, we are offering another session October 25th through 27th for new lifeguard hires at High Blue. And my computer just died, so that will conclude.
And the mayor's going to be brief also. We've seen the painting that the school district did on Main Street. We appreciate what they did, the decal. Are we having a parade this week, or next week, I mean?
Homecoming.
14th, we're having the parade at what time?
Veterans Day parade, isn't it? Isn't that Veterans? No, Veterans Day's in November.
There's a homecoming parade.
Homecoming.
There it is.
Okay.
And what time, do we know?
I don't know.
I believe it's at 5 o'clock. No, I don't think so.
I know, she's in a different world right now. But we've got it coming
Calendar.
up. We got homecoming coming up.
17th.
17th, I should have known that. I got one from him today.
Yeah, at 5 p.m.
And when's Halloween on Main Street? It's, you know, you come and trick or treat.
26th, Saturday?
Yeah, it's at Saturday.
25th, okay, and that's between 11 and 1? It's in the middle of the day, I believe. So it'd be following the sites to make sure who's at. City manager report.
I have nothing at this time, Mayor.
Wow, okay. Other business. Sir.
Chief, I saw the police department on the news this morning about canine training at our place. Do we actually have a canine, or are we training one, or anything like that?
We do not have a canine. Sergeant Baker, who is now left, has been very active the last few years. That organization just needed a place to host the training, and so we have provided our training room and assisted them in securing property out on the old air base for their annual training that they do. And so it's a 2-day event, yesterday and today, and some of the media came out today, and so that's what you saw.
Wow.
I thought maybe we were getting one again, so.
Any other business? Okay. Motion to enter executive session, discuss matters pertaining to leasing, purchase, or sale of real estate according to Missouri State Statute 610-0212, and to discuss matters pertaining to legal actions according to Missouri State Statute 610-0211, and the record be closed and the meeting adjourned from there. Motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none.
Councilmember Savage,
Aye.
Trutzel,
All right.
Peak, Lathrop,
Aye.
Davidson,
Aye.
Van Winkle,
All right.
Mayor Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember Clark,
Aye.
Finn.
Aye.
And we're adjourned. Thank you all very much.